You cannot explain the genius of someone called Rory McEwen by concentrating on only one aspect of what he produced.
He had this incredible innate talent to be the first there. It was just amazing. You know, art, music, poetry, philosophy. Rory had already been there, you know, so that was the amazing thing about him.
Mama gonna walk, mama talk, well, mama gonna walk,
No one else was playing 12-string, and also it was very authentic, and it was very, you know, it was very close to how Leadbelly played, which was quite difficult. People later on have, you know, used 12 strings, but it wasn't as elaborate as the way Rory played it.
When he has an astonishing ability to reproduce the illusion of a plant. And you think, how on earth has he managed that? And he does it superbly.
There's a sort of searching for some real meaning in our physical existence. And when he looked at a flower, he wasn't just looking at it as a flower. It's almost as if he was looking for its soul.
Rory McEwen was a unique artist, a botanical painter, folk singer, blues guitarist, someone with a gift for creativity. He was born in 1932 in Marchmont House, in the Scottish Borders, into a large aristocratic family.
I think we were vastly privileged. Not only that, but it was the war when he was growing up. So it was really a very rural upbringing. I mean, there were still horses and carts. He describes it as an 18th century upbringing, and to some extent it was.
At Cambridge, Rory's art took second place to music and performing in the footlights.
And I can't remember the exact date when we began to associate doing cabarets together. He would play something and then I would do something comic and then he would play again. We had very amusing times together as this pair of entertainers.
In 1956, Rory put his music skills to the test with a road trip across America. Scottish folk singers Rory and Alex McEwen played their way across the States, in bars and clubs, from New York to the West Coast. Rory taught himself the blues in the style of his hero, Louisiana-born Leadbelly, king of the 12-string guitar. Fresh from this success and back in Britain, Rory became a regular on the BBC's Tonight programme, watched by huge audiences every night, including some surprising fans.
They used to have a slot for various folk singers. Rory was, you know, the main one I connected with because he played really good 12-string guitar in the style of Leadbelly. I'm actually on TV, you know, doing this material. I was like, wow, you know, it really was one of those kind of moments.
In the early 60s, Rory had his own weekly TV show, Hullabaloo, a showcase for folk and blues. Rory was the star and the host.
David Graham and Pete McGurk are going to give a new slant to an old song, and it's called, by Leadbelly, it's called My Girl. My girl, don't lie to me.
He had a real understanding of music, not just of Leadbelly and of blues, but he just had an understanding of folk music, and he had the passion for it.
His head was found in the driving wheel, and his body never has been found.
And it was one of those periods where there's like so much happening, and it kind of got me into like taking music seriously, because Until that point, I wanted to be a vet.
Rory too now changed direction. Folk was giving way to pop. He gave up show business to focus on painting, which was now to become his life's work.
He was very disciplined about going to work, and he did it all the time. It didn't matter what else was going on.
Yes,
there would always be a certain amount of time when he wouldn't be around because he would be painting. But it was almost invisible because it was just like breathing for him.
Rory's depictions of flowers and plants pay close attention to botanical detail. But they're much more than scientific illustration.
I'd never seen a contemporary artist using vellum, and I didn't know its possibilities. And when I saw Rory's work, I thought, my God, he's just lit up my world, but just by this technical use. And also the subject matter somehow works in harmony with the vellum to create this marvellous kind of intimate, personal thing, and which transcends the actual thing itself, you know, becomes something other.
A new generation of botanical artists have been inspired by Rory to paint on vellum and to adopt techniques like his.
This is a small piece of vellum, and vellum is calf skin that has been prepared in such a way that you can see the front here is very smooth, and because it's very smooth, it means that the paint doesn't get absorbed into the material. It just lies on the surface. And because it lies on the surface, it gives a luminosity and an amazing colour. So having put some colour onto his vellum, what Rory would have had to have done next is, if he wants to make that much smoother effect, we're then going to have to use a smaller brush with a much drier amount of paint on, and you're putting on tiny amounts. So he might do it as little hatchings like this. For me, the way he changed my art is by showing that there was a way of making plants exciting, ordinary plants exciting.
Rory's work covered a huge range of flowers and plants. Anemones, tulips, auriculas, fritillaries, roses.
You feel his life in these paintings. They're full of life, about as unacademic as you could get, even though they're so trained, you know, so perfect.
And when he looked at a flower, he wasn't just looking at it as a flower. It's almost as if he was looking for its soul. And that really does come across in the paintings, because they're so much more than what they really should be. They've got a life to them, which is inexplicable.
In the late 60s, Rory's art took new avant-garde directions. At the Richard Demarco Gallery in Edinburgh, he made sculptures in steel, glass and perspex.
He is also, in a way, experimenting with the nature of light. And he, therefore, loved the way light could be touching upon a surface and reflecting things. He was also interested in the materials that modern artists, 20th century artists could use. Corten steel. Imagine that. We're talking about a polymath here. I can't think of many British artists now, the ones that are, much vaunted, the superstars. I can't think that they are in any way better.
In the late 1970s, Rory was diagnosed with cancer, and his art gained an even greater intensity.
And then, of course, he had this, I think, perhaps his finest series on leaves, which was undertaken after he'd learnt he'd got cancer. And they were extremely powerful images, which meant they were almost memento mori of certain places that had meant a lot to him in his life. So you will notice that they're not called by the name of the leaf, but by the name of the place where the leaf was picked up.
He rang me up one day and He said, "Oh, Glenn," he said, "how are you doing?" I said, "More to the point, Rory, how are you doing?" He said, "Well, I think I'm not doing too well." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because, you know, I'm starting to get into opera now, which is a very dangerous sign." And we both laughed because like, in a way, we both knew it was the end of his life, but still, he was able to make fun of it, you know. So that was another thing about Rory. He would never make you feel sorry for himself, you know, but he would just make light of it. And by saying getting into opera, it was a wonderful metaphor, really.
Just before he died, he produced a series of collages, bringing together different aspects of his life: butterflies, landscape, and photographs. Rory McEwen died in 1982. He was just 50 years old.
The thing about Rory is that you never knew what he was going to do next. So it could have been, you know, some different kind of sculpture, some light installations. It could have been some poetry or writing or some different form of music. So he was always, you know, wrong-footing you and surprising you. So the great tragedy of losing him so young was that we also lost all these incredible innovations which he brought to the world.
His legacy in music is only just beginning to be appreciated.
You should fit in at the very beginning of introducing lead belly and the blues to the UK audiences. But as to why this has never been acknowledged, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's sort of time for a renaissance, really.
At the Shirley Sherwood Gallery in Kew, Rory's daughters are putting the final touches to the first major show of their father's work for 25 years.
Oh, those are fabulous. Wow.
You can really see them now, can't you?
God, that's incredible.
I think that most people who see the work, it will slightly alter their view of the world, that they'll look at things and think, oh, you can look at things like that and see them in such minute detail, but also I think it broadens horizons. So I think it works both ways.
They give you a kind of passport to your own sort of sense of focus, you know. So by looking at them, you become very sort of still, because they are so perfectly suspended in time.
Can I read you this quote from Rory, because I think it does sum it up, really. "So I paint flowers as a way of getting as close as possible to what I perceive as the truth, my truth of the time in which I live."